All right, let's talk about something that's been on every collector's mind, shall we? On the heels of my last video talking about Hono prices, I started thinking about what we actually pay for Hot Toys. I got my invoice not too long ago for my Artisan Joker from Sideshow, and it was damn near close to $600 out the door, so I stopped and asked myself this question. What the hell is going on with Hot Toys collecting these days, and is it actually worth it? What's it worth to me? Is it worth it to you? Well, let's talk about all that and more, shall we? Coming up next. Well, what's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel for hopefully a new thought-provoking video on our docket today. You know, we all got into this hobby for the same reason. Why? Because Hot Toys, InArt, and other 6-scale companies make the best 6-scale figures in the whole world. The detail, the realism, the craftsmanship. When you unboxed one of these bad boys, it felt like you were holding a miniature version of your favorite character ripped straight out of the movie, comic book, or TV show, and for a long time, that magic was enough to justify the price. For most of us, we all started out collecting action figures like Funko Pops, Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, you name it. We were paying around $25 or so per figure and getting about 5 figures per wave, so naturally we justified, or at least I did, we rationalized getting one real nice figure instead of 5 mid figures, and well, that's how I got into Hot Toys collecting. For the cost at the time, a $250-ish figure could in theory be justified, but lately, can we all be honest, collecting has started to feel less like a passion and a hobby and more like a financial burden. But before we open up that can of worms, make sure that you do hit me with a like on this video if you haven't already. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. But back to the issue at hand. I know it makes people look weak for even saying it, and some real collectors will look down on me and you and say, well, you're just poor and you're a bad budgeter. But let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? Prices are out of control and are borderline absurd. There, I said it. Now, we expect some level of inflation. Naturally, materials cost more, shipping costs go way up, and sure, Hot Toys and InArt are in fact premium brands. They are not Marvel Legends, they are not Funko Pops, but let's be real. A few years ago, a standard figure would run you around $220 to $250-ish. Now, you're lucky if you find anything under $300. A new Sam Wilson cap? Well, that's just under $400. A standard edition InArt sculpted is right around the same, and don't even get me started on the Artisan line or rooted hair figures. No, those are pushing well over $500-600 out the door easy, and I haven't even started talking about what resellers are asking for yet, so let's not waste any time, let's just go for it and hurt some feelings, shall we? But seriously, here's where it gets frustrating. Yes, some of these increases come from Hot Toys themselves, but a huge chunk is coming from distributors and resellers who are jacking up prices to absurd levels. They know we want these things. They know we're not going to just not buy the latest must-have figure that's shown on one of your favorite channels saying you have to buy this. They take full advantage of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking capitalism. If someone's willing to give you money for something, then it's yours. Take it. But suddenly, a figure that should have been $250 listed is now $350 or $400, even more before it sells out. And when it does, well, in come the sellers offering you that hit of instant gratification. Check out some of these latest prices for some straight from Hong Kong options on some latest releases, such as Darth Maul without the speeder. It's close to $400. The most basic figure from the Ahsoka line, Sabine, almost $350. The Artisan Joker is almost $800 US. What? So let me ask you that question again. What are these things actually worth to you? I see people all the time laughing what people like this seller does, but yet we keep buying. Why? Because we can't not have something. They bring us happiness after all, and no one should prohibit you from having access to what brings you happiness. Why else? Well, FOMO, of course, the fear of missing out. We've all seen it happen. You hesitate on a figure, you think, I'll wait for a sale, then that COVID cash era and the overproduced era, it's gone. So yeah, boom, it's gone, and now the aftermarket price is twice as high. The cycle keeps repeating, and we're the ones stuck paying the price forever. And look, I get it. I'm sure there are people watching this video at this point that are thinking, "What is the point of all your complaining, Kiko? It's not going to change literally anything, and you just wasted your breath, sounding like a giant entitled baby." Okay, whatever. Then let's move on to our next point then, shall we? And ask this. Are we actually getting our money's worth? And that's not a joke. Let's talk about what we're actually paying for. At these prices, the quality should be flawless. And yet more and more collectors are noticing QC issues with InArt and Hot Toys, with issues like loose joints, weak ankle pegs, paint applications, cheap materials, you name it. For $300+ per figure, that's unacceptable, isn't it? As I recently said, I just got in my Artisan Joker, and yeah, it's cool, but shouldn't my mouth be hitting the floor almost for something that's cost $500,000? Should anyone be taking pictures of this figure and the hair ends up looking like crap simply because they handled it poorly? For $500+, why don't I have more than 3 pairs of hands? Great questions, I think. But then there's the issue of reissues. And yes, I've done a video just a couple weeks ago saying that I'm excited about reissues and 2.0s and that I understand the business strategy and the overall value for the collector. But back in the day, Hot Toys figures did hold their value. That's not hyperbole or speculation, it's fact. If you missed out on something, then you had to either pay up or move on from it. But now, they're reissuing everything. It's great for new collectors, like I said, sure, but for those of us who spent years building our collection, it does sting, and don't pretend like it doesn't. That $600 Grail figure you proudly owned, well, you wake up one morning and Hot Toys re-released it for $275, tanking its value overnight. And I know, you shouldn't collect for value, says the real collector, but yet we know there are going to be more reissues coming, and yet we're still paying the ridiculous aftermarket prices because we gotta have it? So, all that to say, between rising costs, greedy resellers, declining QC, and constant reissues, I have to ask again, is this still worth it? What are these new toys worth to you? But that's enough complaining. Let's bring this home and answer a couple final questions, starting with this one. Where do we go from here? Look, I'm not saying to quit collecting, but we as collectors need to be smarter and more analytical in our decision-making process and approach to buying these new pieces. First, stop feeding the resellers. If a figure sells out, do not panic buy from a reseller at double the price. Let them sit on that inventory. Unless it's your job to review these figures, why do you have to have it right now and during the first week? If we stop playing their game, they'll have no choice but to lower their prices. Wishful thinking, I know, but hey, a guy can dream, right? Second, shop around. Some retailers do mark up figures way more than others. Do your research. As I've said, I do not partner with anybody, so I'm not going to recommend anybody, but sometimes a figure that's $350 at one shop is still available for retail somewhere else. It may just take you a while to get it, but you'll still get it nonetheless. Just do your research. Ask questions and make the smart decision. Hell, join a buy-sell trade group and camp out there and wait for the figure that you want to show up. Or be bold and put an ISO in search of and see what happens. No one's forcing you to buy at that price, so if it's not your price, negotiate or move on. Third, be selective. Remember, Hot Toys drops new figures constantly, but not every figure is a must-have. As you can look around, you can tell that I've bought several figures that I had no business buying. Transparently, I got them because I could, not because I wanted them. But if we all start being a little bit pickier about what we buy, maybe, just maybe, these companies will realize they can't keep bleeding us dry. And although they may have us buy up the balls right now, once again, maybe this is all just wishful thinking, but it's worth a shot, right? In closing, look, we all love this hobby. There's nothing like the feeling of adding a new piece to your collection, posing it up on a shelf, and just admiring the artistry. But at the same time, we can't ignore what's happening. The prices, the resellers, the QC issue. It's getting harder and harder to justify making these big purchases. So is Hot Toys collecting still worth it? Well, that's up to you. But one thing's for sure, we need to start pushing back from some of the shenanigans that go on behind the scenes, to the overpriced artisan dealings and resellers, because if we don't, the prices are just going to keep climbing, and before we know it, we'll be paying $1,000 for a figure that still has loose ankle joints and half-assed hair rooting. Well, that's going to do it for us here today. A quick look at the real value that is floating around our little community of 6-scale collecting. So now it's time for you to answer those questions that I asked and let me know, is it worth it to you? And at what point is your jumping off point? Let me know down in the comments below. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel if you haven't already. And of course, give me a like as you head out the door. Until next time, thanks for listening. Happy collecting, if you can afford it. And I'll be seeing you in our next video.